Welcome to Business Morning, live here on Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. I am Bosin Mafaye. We're live to you from Lagos, Nigeria's financial and economic epicenter. We've got a few stories for you in the news this morning to get the business day started. The planned soft launch for Lagos-Ibadan new rail line scheduled for February the 6th has been postponed by another week, according to sources within the industry, because the Chinese contractor reportedly is marking the country's New Year holiday. And that, of course, we expect that to happen in the next couple of days, perhaps next week. Meantime, the Presidential Enabling Business Secretariat meets the private sector in Lagos on the 7th, that's on Thursday this week, to unveil the new reform cycle approved by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and that was in November last year. Dr. Jumoke Oduwole will be heading the PEBEC Secretariat meeting with the key business stakeholders in Lagos in 2 days' time to unveil what the new horizon is for the Presidential Enabling Business of PEBEC and ease of doing business and competitiveness. All of that will be a major discussion on Thursday here in Lagos. Meantime, the Abidjan-Lagos Highway, the ECOWAS, has asked the World Bank for funding support for the 1,080 kilometers 6-lane road because the initial EU EFDB $22.7 million financing is now considered inadequate for the revised total cost of the project at $2 billion. Yesterday morning, EFDB, that's the African Development Bank, signed that agreement with ECOWAS now to get some of the support to get that highway completed, which will run from Lagos through Cotonou, Lomé, Togo, and Accra's capital, all the way to Abidjan. And that is one major highway infrastructure project to be the largest in not only in West Africa, but in sub-Saharan Africa as well. In the power sector, Nigeria's largest power station, Egbe Power PLC, says the bulk trader known as NBET is owing the plant 100 billion naira under the power purchase agreement. However, the Egbe Group CEO, Kola Adesina, says the plant will continue to add more, so it's looking to add 1,320 megawatts to the national grid by the end of this month, which has been previously constrained by evacuation challenges. Egbe Power PLC says it's looking to increase its output by additional 1,900 megawatts to bring electricity generation by the plant to 3,200 megawatts by using new technology. And let's go to the marketplace, where the NESD, that's the National Association of Securities Dealers, over-the-counter business and markets, is meeting business and markets community on Thursday this week to highlight the benefits of using its over-the-counter platform for their businesses. And that will have the SEC Chief Mary Uduk, a former member of the MPC, Dr. Doyin Salami, also of the Lagos Business School, and other top CEOs speaking at the breakfast event. And all that is also here in Lagos. So let's get a bit more of the market insight. Stocks still a little bit like dead cat bounce, but the NESD, USI was a little bit tired on Monday to start a brand new week, while investors keep so much in the Treasury bills market. We're now saying Treasuries are going single on the yield curve, while investors are giving Naira bonds a bit of a cold shoulder. Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent, is live to us from the Nigeria Stock Exchange, bright and early, on the floor, keeping an eye on the markets for us. Temple, good morning. Let's bring you on to this conversation. Yep. Take us through this. How we finished off on Monday, the first trading day of the week. And if this looks like we're turning the corner, or we should just hold it a little bit. Don't throw any party yet because of the 0.35% we saw on the composite index yesterday.
Again, the fact that election is coming is actually one of the major reasons why you should actually be very careful or cautious in investing in the market at this point in time. Yes, you gave a very lovely description of how the markets, generally from the equities, to the unlisted, and of course the debt side of the market ended yesterday. But talking about stocks basically were up yesterday, some 0.35%. We saw that the equity capitalization also closed at 11.464 trillion naira, adding some 40 billion naira. So that's a particular reading of the market. And we saw that in absolute terms, the indices rose some 108.69 absolute points. And that represents this increase of 0.35% that we had yesterday. Equity capitalization, as I said, rose some 40.53 billion naira. And we saw investors showing more interest in the banking names, especially the tier one names, as well as the conglomerate, the consumer goods segment of the market, where we saw the likes of Nigerian breweries and, of course, Dangote Flour and 15 other stocks coming in to push up the indices yesterday. This is very, very tricky because we know that this same month is when we'll be seeing election, the general election, happening. So if you're investing at this point in time, you want to be very careful. But yesterday, we know that the market breadth, that represents the investor sentiment, was a bit negative. We saw some 17 gainers as against 20 losers in the market. And we saw that the Ikeja Hotel and, of course, Red Star Express were at par in terms of gains, rising some 10% each to emerge as the top gainers in the market, while Champions Breweries in the consumer goods segment of the market was the topmost loser yesterday in the market. In terms of the top trades that we had in the market, we got Fidelity Bank rising some declining rather by some 42 basis points. That's not a tier one bank. It lost. We saw some transactions across some 36 million units of the shares, and that was valued at 82 million naira. Now we note that in recent time, Fidelity Bank has seen so much of gains in the market, rising beyond 2 naira. It is a penny stock, or what you call a cobble stock in this market. And now, if you see it going down, it represents the fact that some investors are trying to take profit or maybe trying to reduce their holdings in it because of the general elections that's underway. If you look at the activity level in the market yesterday, there was so much of a decline. We saw just 183.67 million units of shares traded in total, and that was valued at 1.04 billion naira compared to the likes of 2-point-something to 3 billion naira that we regularly get in the market on a daily basis. And yesterday we saw only 2,909 deals. Now, if you look at the activity level, it tells you that there's a bit of less interest in the stock market where you have so much risk. And now it also signals the fact that election is here. Once election is here, everybody, all the investors in the market want to be very, very jittery. Let's go through the sectors and see how the banking sector, was able to perform well yesterday. We've got it rising at some 19 basis points yesterday. Access Bank rose 164 basis points. Stanbic IBTC did 1.55%. UBA did 0.70%. FBN Holdings rose 68 basis points, and Guaranty Trust Bank closed higher at 0.45%. And consumer goods segment of the market also saw some good gains. Nigerian Breweries was able to rise 5.27%, and of course Dangote Flour rose 3.45%, all pushing up the indices, which ended up closing at 107 basis points. If you look at the insurance segment, it was also positive. Industrial goods segment of the market was also positive. Kiotics did well, rising from 5.56% and helped to sustain the positive trend that we saw on the industrial segment of the market. Oil and gas, however, had the cold shoulder of a lot of investors. Now, if you take note, the week before now, last week, we saw a lot of investors keying into the oil and gas segment of the market. Now, the oil and gas was where we now see the investors now reducing their holdings, and that's why you have losses in Forte Oil, which takes us to the energy market now. You got losses in Forte Oil yesterday, declining some 847 basis points. O&O shed 2.02%, and Total was down 1.07%. Now, that tells you that investors have moved money away from that sector to some other sector, trying to rebalance their portfolio in the market. And this takes us to the NASD OTC, where Bosin just hinted about earlier. We saw a bit of decline to start the week. There was a slow start to the week, down 0.31% to 746.66%. And we saw that that was a decline. We saw that the market capitalization there was actually some 536.43 billion naira, while volume came in yesterday at 325,095, valued at 4.55 million naira yesterday. Deals yesterday was just 7 in the side of the market. Now, we know that generally that market has seen some kind of some kind of interest in recent times. The mergers and acquisition that took place on Ensure PLC, which is an insurance firm, enough for Allianz to now take over, has happened. And Allianz has now fully taken over, and that particular symbol on that market has now changed. And so we're seeing a whole lot of interest in that. We do not really know how long Allianz will stay on NASD or to say before metamorphosing into the main board, or probably the main board of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Perhaps that will happen any moment from now. But if we move to the debt market, where we've seen bonds, we've got yesterday a bit of reversal in the bullish trend that we saw in bonds in recent times. Yesterday, average yield jumped some 5 basis points to 14.91%. We got sell pressure across the mid end of the curve, where we saw 11 basis points increase, and of course the long end of the curve, where we saw some 3 basis points increase. Now, investors in particular dropped the 23rd of February 2028 security, which is #1 on our radar here. You see it yesterday was priced at 93 naira 38 kobo after investors exchanged just 600 million units of shares. 600 million naira over this particular security, and we saw just 2 deals there. So for some other securities that you have there, yields at the short end of the curve was basically flat yesterday. There was not so much of interest there. But if you look at the debt side or the treasury bill side of the market, you got bullish sentiments in treasury bills. Average yield compressed by 15 basis points to 14.25%, and you still got buy sentiments across the different ends of the curve. The short end of the curve contracted some 26 basis points, mid-end contracted 29 basis points, the long end also contracted by 5 basis points. But the interest that we saw there led to contraction across the 31-day to maturity, 101-day to maturity. You have the 297-day to maturity bills, all of them contracting actually yesterday, Bosun.
Yes, Tempo Shaju, thank you very much. Let's get back to you a little bit later on the program to take a look at today's trading day, if we still have that verve that the market started to show on Monday, if anything is changing. Thank you very much. I'll stand by there. We'll be back to you within the hour.